In today's video I want to show you my Battlesmith build for Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree. This one packs some punch, obliterating enemy health bars and poison alike. It's insanely powerful to the point of trivializing encounters with just sheer firepower. The moveset is also very satisfying to use, with a unique weapon art summoning spears that damage and stagger enemies. And it's also an AoE with near infinite poise allowing you to tank through most hits. Not all ultimate moves still knock you out, but it's good enough to keep up the pressure. First, let's have a look at regular enemies and mini-bosses. Those are just fodder for a one-shot machine. Nothing can survive the powerful swings of this weapon. Your running R2 into regular R1 deals immense poise damage to enemies, staggering them in an instant. Charged R2s into R1s are also a really good way to stagger enemies. This in turn renders their defenses useless, which in turn allows you to keep on smithing them into the shape of runes. As for the weapon, it is obtainable in a forge dungeon before Castle Ensis, which is absolutely perfect for starting your blacksmith career. It's an early pick and can even be obtained without killing a single enemy. But once you get your hands on your new smithing tool, you are golden. Domination awaits. Bosses cannot do anything about your artisan metal shaping strikes. Starting fights the right way allows you to chunk everyone for 40% plus of their health. Even the high-end bosses. Humanoid enemies get overwhelmed without any chance to act. Bigger bosses are a bit more troublesome, but combinations of jump attacks, running at twos, R1 chains and your weapon art take care of nearly every enemy type in the game. And you're also really tanky to boot, with multiple faith spells boosting your performance. Resistances, more damage, health regen, all of which can give you a little bit of extra oomph to brute force your way through encounters. Now if you like what I do and want to support me, make sure to leave a like, comment and subscribe if you haven't already. I cover all sorts of RPG games, be it strategy, C or ARPG on this channel in form of extensive guides. So thank you very much for the support and let's dive into the meat. So first up, the attributes for this build and how to progress your character. Start with 60 vigor, you will need it. This build is rocking medium load and will get hit, so you will need the extra health sometimes. 20 mind is next. You can get away with 15 if you don't use your weapon art too much. 30 endurance is a must, with the weapon being extremely heavy with 22 weight. You will also want to wield heavier armor to take hits. 10 dex and 11 int are both required by this weapon to be wieldable. The other two stats are 39 strength and 20 faith, but we want those to be higher anyway. Speaking of which, 55 strength is enough as a two-handed weapon to get 80 strength with the 50% bonus. And 25 faith for the golden vow buff is also a must, but you want to increase it eventually even further for more damage. The faith scaling on this weapon is pretty decent, which is a great bonus whenever you decide to go with offensive magic. But keep in mind, faith is just a dump stat for extra levels alongside endurance for heavier armor. You can also grab 17 dexterity and freely switch between most weapons in the DLC. Light great swords come to mind. First up, let's have a look at the weapon. The weapon is a massive anvil with a great moveset. We're going to start with the R1 combo, which is a swing, another swing with a wide arc, but they are getting narrower and narrower, and they will hit enemies further away. The hitbox is quite large on this one, so even if you do not hit the enemy directly with the hammer, you will be able to deal damage. Next up is the R2 combo. You have one swing and another swing in the combo. The second swing is not advisable to use. You can combo this one into a R1 with more success. So you want to chain your R2 into an R1, and then another one to deal insane damage very fast. This one is enough to stagger most enemies in the game. However, sometimes you won't be able to execute this combo. So you want to charge your R2, hit an enemy one time and then back off. This is enough. Some enemies demand of you to spam your R1, so you just spam your R1. Other times you want to jump attack enemies with a really good jump attack. Your dodge roll attack with the R1 is really bad, so try to not use it. Your R2 roll attack is much better. It's a wide swing and hits enemies very nice. For the running attack, the R2 is extremely good and the R1 is also pretty good. The stamina consumption on the R2 is very high, so try to keep that in mind when trying to use it. Use it one time and then back off. Do not follow up if you don't have the stamina for it. And you can also chain your weapon art. Your weapon art summons those spikes. Those deal a ton of poise damage. And enemies running into those spikes will be damaged again and again. So try to chain those. The FP cost is not too heavy. The weapon art is great for clearing out camps like so. The AoE is pretty big. and as you can see, enemies running into the spikes will be damaged as well. Now as for where you can find this weapon, the Anvil Hammer weapon can be found at the end of the Ruined Forge Lava Intake Minor Dungeon. You need to lower the column in the middle with a lever you find at the bottom of the dungeon. Afterwards climb it, the lava can be touched without instant death looming. Loot the shrine at the end. Next up, talismans. We are going to use the Great Jar Arsenal Talisman. Despite having already 32 endurance on this build, I'm still lacking to really have the heavier armor equipped. So I need the Great Jar's Arsenal. Around 45 endurance is enough to drop the Great Jar and equip the two-headed turtle talisman. This one can be obtained very easily right at the start of the game. You just need to run to a cave, loot a body, and you will be able to find the talisman. Otherwise, we're going to use the good old Dragon Crest Great Shield Talisman for a boost to physical damage mitigation. That's 20% here. And you want to have a elemental damage reduction somehow on the build. Flame Drake talismans are really good, as well as the Pearl Drake talismans, also really good. You get +3 options in the DLC. The other talismans like the Spell Drake talisman can be useful, but I prefer to have the Pearl Drake talisman for those types of encounters because there is a ton of mixed damage. One of the first major bosses deals fire damage and magic damage, so the Pearl Drake talisman is better. Otherwise, the Flame Drake talisman is really good for a ton of bosses. There is, however, bosses that deal lightning fire damage, there is ghost fire, there is also magic fire, so all of those will be better dealt with the Pearl Drake talisman. But there is also pure fire damage monsters, so having this one is really nice. And the last one is the two-handed sword talisman. This one boosts your two-handed attack damage. So when you're two-handing, you will deal a roughly 15 to 10% more damage, but you can as well exchange this one for the turtle talisman because this one is really good. And if you deal enough damage already, the extra stamina recovery will help you with a ton of boss fights. Now, the two-handed sword talisman can be found inside the high structure in the Templetown Ruin. It's located in a chest inside a chapel-style building after fighting the horned warrior guarding it. The Flame Drake +3 talisman can be found in the Fort of Reprimand, inside a chest behind cages. It can be easily reached right at the start of this minor dungeon by entering through the front gate and getting to the stairs down below on the right side of the court. The Pearl Drake +3 talisman can be found in a specimen storehouse within the Shadow Keep. Progress to the 6th floor, pull the lever that moves the statues and go down back to the 2nd floor. Here you will be able to find a big-headed boy with a beard. Try to dig around inside the beard and you will grab the talisman. And the two-headed turtle talisman can be found inside a cave beneath a waterfall guarded by enemies just east of the Rivermouth Cave. It is roughly beneath the tombstone sticking out of the wall. So jump down and grab the talisman. As for the armor, go with the heaviest stuff you can find. I like the look of the Crucible set, so I'm going with the hammer helmet, which is also quite fitting because we are wielding a gigantic hammer. So we are a hammer and we wield a hammer. You can find this one relatively late in the game. Otherwise, Crucible 3 armor, Radahn's gauntlets and Crucible greaves. I would much rather prefer to have something heavier equipped, but the look of this one is just really great, so I'm going to use it. Now, as far as your spells go, we have Golden Vow to boost our attack damage and defenses. We have Flame Grant Me Strength, which is a massive boost to our damage. It's roughly like 30%. Really good. Then you have the Stone of Gurang for our ranged option. You have the Dragon Bolt Blessing to increase your lightning resistance. You have Flame Protect Me to increase your fire resistance, and you have Beastal Vitality to regenerate a little bit of HP throughout the fight. I personally don't like to use this one and just go with the two first buffs to increase my damage potential and just nuke bosses, but you can use those if you're a little bit weaker. You can also use the Flame Cleans Me spell that cures poison and Scarlet Rot, but there is not much in the DLC, so I have not been using this one. And lastly, the Flask of Wondrous Physique. We have Opaline Heart tiers and the Stonebark Cracked tier, both of which are really good throughout the whole DLC. So with this one, you can guarantee stance breaks on bosses right from the get-go. Just pop this one, run up to the enemy, R2 them, R1 them, and they should break. Otherwise, try 2 R2s and 1 R1. Those should be enough, except some humanoid bosses and really big dragons. Now this sums up the video. If you like what you saw, make sure to like, comment and subscribe if you have not already. You can also support me some more by joining the channel membership, which will allow me to keep making videos. So thank you very much for watching and see you next time. Bye!